Ole Miss is chasing a top back. All the while, Lane Kiffin has become the villain that college football has needed.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's episode, we dive into Ole Miss getting a surprise visit from Fluff Bothwell of South Alabama as Lane Kiffin works to rebuild that running back room that hasn't really been the same since Quinshon Judkins left. Plus, the Rebels remain very much in the fight for Justice Haynes. Can Kiffin get that top-tier back in 2025? And has Lane Kiffin quietly become the face to the anti-SEC crowd? We'll break all that down as well. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you very much for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. Don't forget to find a second listen on the network. Host Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy offer great perspectives on the SEC, college football, and, well, even Ole Miss. So check them out. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, it is really interesting. We were sitting here watching all these commitments come in, and the Portal King is absolutely Portal Kinging, all the while tweeting crazy stuff at the College Football Playoff Committee, which we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But we're going to start this show on those commitments and on visits in the transfer portal, because honestly, that's the most important thing. Ole Miss is getting a visit from Fluff Bothwell. Yes, you heard that correctly. Fluff Bothwell from South Alabama, who has visited Mississippi State over the last couple of days. He got up to Oxford late yesterday afternoon and started his official visit as well. He has also visited Arizona and Cincinnati, and he's going to be choosing between those four teams. This is an interesting running back. He is a bigger body, 5'11", about 220 pounds. I saw the game of South Alabama versus LSU and against Appalachian State, and Bothwell just went off against Appalachian State a year ago, and it showed an explosiveness, a twitchiness of a running back, of a player that honestly didn't belong on that level. Fluff Bothwell has so much in common with Ahmad Hardy, who is committed to Missouri as we speak, but it's a similar type situation to where he was under-recruited out of high school, but turned out to be a really good player. Again, over the course of the season, lots of tread on the tires as a true freshman, 111 carries, 832 yards, and 13 touchdowns. A really big deal for Ole Miss to get this player on campus. He is a guy that would provide a different aspect of the running game of what is already on campus. At Ole Miss, as we sit right now, we have Logan Diggs. Now, we don't know what the deal is with Logan Diggs. He is coming off about a year ago an ACL injury, so he's had a year to heal, but we are not sure what it's going to look like when it comes back. The good news is ACLs, even though you can play after 9-10 months, it's usually about an 18-month injury. And if you just look at the timetable of him coming back, Logan Diggs is going to be over 18 months by the time the season starts. Now, I expect him to go through spring. I expect him to get a workload, but Ole Miss needs to see if the explosiveness is still there. The things that made Logan Diggs the dude is still there. That is why that's important. Then you have Kewan Lacy, the running back that transferred in this year from Missouri. He's a guy that Ole Miss recruited the heck out of high school. He had 23 carries, 140 yards, nothing extravagant at Missouri, but he is a player that Ole Miss and Kevin Smith really like. Them getting him to Oxford, he provides a little bit something different as well. And of course, Ole Miss is continuing to recruit Justice Haynes. And to my knowledge, they're still in the fight there. It's one of those situations where not a lot of information is coming out. But Justice Haynes is still in the fight with South Carolina. I think he's at Michigan right now. And the rumor is that he might visit Ohio State in the near future of what's going on. But a player like Justice Haynes, yes, everybody's going to be involved in his recruitment as well. The point is, Ole Miss is steadily working on getting that high-level running back to complement what they already have, but also give them a little bit something different, something that they haven't had since Quinshon Judkins pulled his stuff and all of that went down at the end of 2023. He ended up at Ohio State. He's in the playoffs. I saw him against Tennessee. We'll talk about that in the third segment. This playoff situation is both a wonderful thing and B, an absolute disaster. And it would just take just small tweaks to get it back on the rails. But Fluff Bothwell has visited Mississippi State. Now, the rumor out of there is you hear the mods talking about we feel good about it and stuff like that. But the words they're actually saying doesn't tell me that they are inspiring a lot of confidence that they're going to land this prospect. Now, they might. It's a good player. And in this NIL world, we don't know exactly what it looks like. But if Ole Miss goes in and lowballs him, it could be a situation that he ends up at Arizona, Mississippi State, or Cincinnati. If Ole Miss is really invested in this prospect, we'll see exactly what that looks like on the official visit this weekend, or as it is currently going on right now. Then he'll decide. Now, here is what I want to know. If we don't hear anything, in my opinion, that is because they think they have a real shot at Justice Haynes, and they were letting him, he's the number one person on the board. And for lack of a better word, they were waiting to see what happened with Fluff Bothwell. If Fluff Bothwell goes ahead and commits, that is them going ahead and punting on Justice Haynes. And because Bothwell is the running back that can do a lot of the stuff that Justice Haynes does. Now, Justice Haynes is a 5-star back. He's an Alabama running back. He's a good player. But Bothwell can provide a lot of that same stuff as well. And you're starting to construct a running back room in a different way to where it looks a little bit different. If Logan Diggs comes out in the Gator Bowl and has that big Gator Bowl that we all think that he can do and get ready for 2025, that is absolutely a good sign. If he comes out and runs, let's just say 12 times, if he runs the ball 7 to 12 times for about 40 yards, I think Ole Miss fans should consider this a win for Logan Diggs. Coming back and knocking all the rust off his first game against a team that is known for tackles for loss and things like that. The thing that I would worry about is if he went like 10 for 17, if he went 12 for 20 or something like that. I think that would give Ole Miss fans pause and mean that you even have to search out another running back. Now, remember, the transfer portal is open until December 28th. That's a mighty fine day, I might add. That is my Waffle House holiday. But there's also after bowl games, you get 5 days, or after playoff games, you get 5 days. So what this means is after the Gator Bowl, the deadline for Ole Miss is January the 7th. After the Final Four of the playoffs, the loser to that is going to be 5 days after their portal window closes. And the losers are the winner of the championship game. Those two teams, it closes December or January 28th or something like that. So there's a lot of transfer players that could still get into the portal. You have to determine is like, hey, is this guy worth getting right now, or will something come along a little bit different and a little bit later? And in a lot of cases, it does. There's players that pop in the portal that you didn't realize. You know, everybody was going all crazy about Eric Singleton whenever he was in the portal, and, you know, Ole Miss got a visit in the whole 9 yards. And then Zacharias Branch just hopped into the portal a couple of days ago. That ruined Singleton to Texas. And now all of a sudden Singleton's like scrambling, trying to find what's going on. Now the rumor is he's going to end up at Auburn, but the point is you do not know how the transfer portal is going to handle each individual situation. That is my point there. I don't know. Fluff Bothwell is a really good running back, and honestly, he's the physical type runner that Ole Miss needs. Either him or Justice Haynes. Give me one of them and call it a day. He is an absolutely good running back on campus as we speak right now. Ole Miss lands big commitments from Andrew Jones and Sage Ryan as Pete Golding reloads the defense for 2025. Where do the Rebels stand heading into the season, and what position should they target in the transfer portal? Do not miss this breakdown. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? I mean, that definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for. Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It is like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is the personal finance app that helps you find and cancel those unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lowers your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscription, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving their members up to about $740 a year, seriously, when using all the app's premium features. For me, it's one of the best features. One of its best features is the subscription tracker. I have used it to cancel services I won't be using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, you might be able to automatically set aside money for the future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And have you ever heard of the South's favorite pickle? I'm talking about Stewart's Cajun Pickles, that is. If you think you don't like pickles, it's probably because you haven't tried these yet. These pickles are so fresh and crunchy with just the right amount of Cajun kick to help you come back for more. And they're not just delicious. They're also handmade by a family-owned company on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. So every bite is packed with authentic Southern flavor. But Stewart's doesn't just stop at pickles. They have pickled green beans, okra, asparagus, carrots, too, perfect for spicing up that snack game. You can find these amazing products at Rouse's, Sullivan's, Corner Market in Hattiesburg, and even some Winn-Dixies along the coast. Or if you prefer shopping online, head to thepickedstore.com. Make sure you give them a like and a follow on Facebook and Instagram. And when you shop local and try these pickles, I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Stewart's Cajun Pickles, the South's favorite pickle. All right, so the Portal King, Lane Kiffin, got a series of commitment like he has been doing. I think Ole Miss is closing in on 15 transfer portal commitments as we speak right now. And we're going to start out with the most recent, and that is Deuce Alexander, wide receiver out of Wake Forest. I guess Wake Forest paid us $700,000 or something like that to not play us in football anymore. We took that money and gave it to Deuce Alexander, their wide receiver. He is 6 foot 175, a really good player. Now, if you look at these zones on Deuce Alexander, you can exactly see the areas that he likes to live and where he is most effective being targeted. He is very good within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. He is a slot type wide receiver. I bet he has been used a lot on bubbles and jailbreak screens, but they also send him deep because of his elite speed. He is a guy that will absolutely run by you. He is somebody that is a direct replacement for Jordan Watkins, as long as his hands are exactly where it is, because the speed matches up with what Jordan Watkins can do. A really, really good football player. Now, if you look at other players that Ole Miss was able to bring in over the weekend, it starts with Andrew Jones. He was the SWAC Defensive Player of the Year. He was a Grambling linebacker, 6'2", 220 pounds. Built like an Adonis, if we're just going to be honest. He's just like a statue out there on the football field. Great sideline to sideline player, unbelievably athletic player. He's going to be somebody that needs to be molded and will be a lot of finishing work done by Pete Golding. Zach Arnett going to UNLV. That kind of hurts Ole Miss here. We'll see if Ole Miss brings in another analyst with that linebacker background that Zach Arnett had, because I talked all during the offseason last year about how Zach Arnett was the linebacker whisperer, and lo and behold, Chris Paul and TJ Daugherty were two of the better linebackers that Ole Miss has seen in the last 30 years. Really good player. Now, another commitment they got was Sage Ryan, the former 5-star commit a safety player, 5'11", 200 from LSU. Good player. He's a guy that can play all over the secondary. He's a Mr. Fix-It, and I guarantee you that Pete Golding has an idea of exactly where they want to play this football player. He's just a really good, really athletic player, and I think he hasn't given up a touchdown in 2 years or something like that. Now, LSU fans, for whatever reason, just full disclosure, I guess they'd kind of turned on Sage Ryan because that defense has problems. That defense has been problematic at best for the last 2 or 3 years, and Sage Ryan gets some of the blame for that as well. But I guarantee you that Pete Golding knows exactly how they want to use Sage Ryan, and they will make his athletic ability absolutely work this season for Ole Miss. And seriously, coming up in our final segment, it's a college football playoff first round that was both a disaster and the coolest thing I've ever watched on a college football field. Plus, Lane Kiffin has emerged as the face of the SEC to the anti-SEC crowd, and Ole Miss has gone from a neat story to the Death Star in national perception to those robots. How can we fix this playoff system? It's not hard. Stick around for that. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. That's pretty cool. It's thrilling. Not only you can bet on who won the game, but FanDuel also has bets for, like I said, how many points each team will score, so much more at FanDuel. So join FanDuel.com to join today, and that is FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Really interesting stuff, and, just changing gears a little bit right now. And we should change gears right now because the college football playoff happened over the weekend, and the games weren't particularly good, but the games hasn't been good for the BCS all the time. The games are not good in the 14 playoff. The games not being good is just an excuse for people to have confirmation bias or whatever their take was going into the tournament. So anybody that's been pro BCS, Saturday was absolutely terrible. But the reality of what happened Saturday is I got to see 3 of the coolest environments ever for college football. I got to see Tennessee completely choke in Columbus, Ohio in a frigid night. I got to see the crowd go absolutely nuts. The energy surrounding these games were absolutely top-notch at another level. The first ever postseason college football games at the FBS level hosted on campus. It was absolutely fantastic. It was one of the coolest things that I have ever seen in my entire life regarding college football, period. That said, it was a little bit of a disaster with the way that they set it up. They had a bunch of good ideas at the beginning. These committees, and Mike Leach had a famous video making fun of how Americans need a committee to do absolutely everything and how these committees ruin everything. Well, the college football committee decided that, hey, if you win your conference, you should get an automatic bid. That's only fair. They deserve it. So you end up with Boise State and Arizona State as the number 3 and the number 4 seed, which pushed down the teams that should have been in those positions to artificially have these other. And if you don't believe me, look at the betting lines for the bowl games coming out. You have Texas favored by 15 points over Arizona State, and you have Penn State favored by 11 over Boise State. Those teams probably should have been guaranteed into the field. They should not have guaranteed a bye. The bye system that the college football playoff has been an utter disaster, and it has caused this playoff to be competitively not at the level it should have been. Lane Kiffin, when Indiana came in and completely was overwhelmed, posted, and all of a sudden here comes all the anti-SEC thing. And it happened again when SMU did their thing. Lane Kiffin tweeted, here comes all the people on there. Lane Kiffin has become a magnet because of him stating the obvious. It is not the fault of SMU. It is not the fault of Indiana. It is not the fault of Tennessee. These scales, people had their thumb on them from the very beginning in the name of, I don't know, inclusion and to make these other conferences feel special. And Lane Kiffin became the face of it by pointing that out. Now, a lot of what Lane Kiffin was doing was the fact that Ole Miss didn't make the tournament and was just on the outside looking in. And listen, as the Locked On Ole Miss podcast has told you many times, if Ole Miss wanted to be in the playoff, they shouldn't have lost to Kentucky. They shouldn't have been Kentucky's only W in the SEC. So in the end, Ole Miss not making the playoff is not the committee's fault. It is Ole Miss's fault. That said, there are structural problems inside the playoff right now. There is. They decided to try and make too many people happy, and the result is a playoff system that isn't at the level that probably should have been. And here's my example. I think that this playoff is going to go to 16 teams. I think it absolutely has to go to 16 teams. That is natural. When you look at a Thursday of 2 games, a Friday of 3 games, a Saturday of 3 games, it would mirror basically what that opening weekend of March Madness in basketball looks like. A weekend before Christmas, and you set that up, it would be the absolutely biggest weekend on the calendar, and I'm including basically divisional round NFL playoffs at that point. It would be absolutely massive. So let's take the college football rankings this year and see what a 16-team playoff would look like. And I mean, it is fantastic. You're going to watch this and say, man, yes, I would watch every one of those games, because the reality is everybody would watch all of these games. So here's the future of the college football playoff, in my opinion. I think it's inevitable that this thing goes to 16 teams. I just do, because it just makes too many sense. 16 is that magic number that Americans are prone to and to get to. They're used to it. Each region of the NCAA tournament bracket is 16 teams. This is a nice, neat bracket to fill out. There's a lot of the first day of the NCAA tournament that you can deal with. So this is what it would look like. All of the first round games, the higher seeded or the lower seeded team, I should say, host the game. So you would have Clemson traveling to Eugene, Oregon for a first round game. Be a fantastic game. For a 1-16 game, because we all think of what we know from 1-16 games, because if you look at the NCAA basketball tournament, it is going to be a little bit different. Okay. It just is. But that Oregon-Clemson game, that would be a fun matchup. Indiana and Boise State. You want to talk about a competitive good game? That's a situation that Indiana definitely could win, but I would not put that past Boise State. That would be a fun matchup in that 8-9 game that's supposed to be a toss-up. When you look at the bracket, the 8-9 game is supposed to be, and I don't know who is going to win this game. That's an example of that. Penn State versus Miami, a 4-13 game. Cam Ward, playoff, Happy Valley. Yeah, sign me up all day. That is a game that would be absolutely fun and worth seeing. Notre Dame and Arizona State. Arizona State traveling to South Bend. You know, you get to see Cameron Scatterbo run the ball against the Notre Dame defense that is really good at stopping the run. Notre Dame would probably be one of the bigger favorites on the board in this playoff week, but that would be an interesting game that I would absolutely watch. Now, this is the fun part for me. Number 2, Georgia, and number 15, South Carolina, especially right now, looking at what Carson Beck went through. South Carolina might be a pick 'em in that game with how they're playing. That would be one of the upset special games as a 2-15 game that everybody would circle. Everybody would watch that football game. Tennessee hosting SMU. Yeah, that would make a ton of sense as well. Ole Miss traveling to Texas. Yeah, that would be a fantastic game with Ole Miss's defense and Texas' defense and the Sark and the Kiffin and all those storylines there. And it would close out with Ohio State hosting Alabama. Alabama, the 11 seed, Ohio State, the 6 seed. Instead of these brackets and the 12-team playoff where the thumb was on the scale in these matchups, you would have a real bracket that put out absolutely better matchups in a 16-team tournament. It makes all the sense in the world. Lane Kiffin, while he is advocating for his team right now in all these tweets, he is doing what he's supposed to do as a paid employee of the Southeastern Conference. Paul Feinbaum as well. Heck, ESPN paying billions of dollars to the SEC, them as well. Everybody else needs to shut up, needs to be quiet, because at the end of the day, Fox is doing the same thing on the other way. If you go to, what's that, RJ Young or whatever his name is on Twitter, or Joel Klatt, they're always pumping up Big Ten teams. Do you know why they're pumping up Big Ten teams? Because they're paying millions of dollars to the Big Ten for the right to broadcast those games. Now, the ones that get lost are the Big 12 and the ACC, and all of them are going to take the errors from everybody else because the two big power leagues are set up to where they have to exist. Lane Kiffin is just doing basically his job. I want him to advocate for his team in every possible situation. I want him to piss off every Big Ten team and every Big Ten fan, Big 12 fan, ACC fan in the entire country, and turn the Ole Miss Rebels into the Oakland Raiders, to where everybody looks at Oxford, Mississippi as an evil empire, as the Death Star. If Lane Kiffin can accomplish that, you're going to see something interesting. Recruiting is going to go up as well. Now, here's the other thing that obviously those people don't realize what's going on, because Lane Kiffin is a master of manipulating the media. He just has. He manipulates the local media, the national media, all of that. He knows how to get a message out, unlike a lot of people. And he has the reach on social media to be able to do that. Lane Kiffin knows that attention in a recruiting cycle, what he can bring by doing this. He knew that Ole Miss would be the story of the college football playoff, and one of the things that everybody is talking about by doing this, because people can't help but react to it. Him doing it is going to put Ole Miss at the forefront. So Ole Miss going after Justice Haynes, Ole Miss going after Fluff Bothwell, Ole Miss doing all that. It is going through a college football playoff cycle where Ole Miss was one of the main topics of conversation other than the actual games. That is why Lane Kiffin did this. And I am completely okay with him being the villain that he needs to be. Because at the end of the day, this playoff was one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. Thank you, college football, for finally getting that right. But there's some tweaks that need to happen. You need to have a situation where people on the committee cannot receive a dime, not a single dime from the college football playoff. Whether another team getting in, it cannot be in a financial incentive for, say, the head of the playoff committee getting Indiana into the tournament. That can't happen. The other thing is there didn't need to be automatic buys at all, or automatic bids at all. I think number 1 through 16 should just be seated and they should go play the games. And I think that college football needs a net type system like basketball, to where quad one wins and all that. So strength of schedule is rewarded and not punished. If you do those three things, you will have a situation where this college football playoff can expand to 16 and become the greatest college football end of season that we have ever seen. Absolutely, period. All right, we're in the holiday week. There's not going to be any PM shows. I think we're going to do a squad show on Thursday. Stand by for that. But we're not going to do any standard extra videos. This is kind of it for Monday night. So everybody, take care. Enjoy this. We will talk to you tomorrow. We'll see what's up. Hotty toddy, everyone.